I know, I'm like, oh no. Goldie, I might move my chair over there beside you.
Right.
Hey there, stranger.
Hey, Secretary, how are you? Long time no see.
Is he almost here?
Yes, ma'am. He's here.
Okay. We've got a few minutes, Goldie, and you just wait. It's about 3 minutes till. 56, okay. He's pulling in. Actually, he's right there. Yes. Well, we will finish in a music. Okay. Are we ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's almost afternoon, but we're going to start a couple minutes early. My name is Susie Hamilton, and I'm the Secretary of the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And I am so pleased that Governor Roy Cooper could join us here today. Governor Cooper has walked the walk and talked the talk of equality, fairness, and freedom throughout his entire career. From convening the recent Andrea Harris Task Force to finding ways to how to address the coronavirus that is disproportionately affecting people of color, to the task force analyzing inequity in the state's justice system, to appointing the most diverse cabinet in state history. Governor Cooper has empowered advocates and partners to champion change. From social justice to environmental justice, he has charged us to make sure that North Carolina does better. He fights every day to expand Medicaid because every person deserves access to health care. He has worked to ensure every person is counted in the census. He has championed our children's right to an education, prioritizing resources for public schools in his budgets, and supporting ways to make sure that great teachers are available to every student, and that more of these teachers look like the students that they teach. He has advocated for historically underutilized businesses to get a fair chance at government business and contracts. And now more than ever, he has championed underserved communities across our state to get connected to the global economy through high-speed internet. Unfortunately, Governor Cooper will have to leave immediately following his remarks to get to another event, but as a member of his cabinet, I can tell you that every day he works to build a safer, stronger North Carolina for all people and the generations to come. Please join me in welcoming the Governor of North Carolina, Mr. Roy Cooper.
Thank you all so much. You're too kind, Secretary Hamilton. I'm grateful for your leadership. And I'm so excited about today. This project has been a long time coming. So many presentations, so many phone calls, so much advocacy. But here we are. Here we are, ready to celebrate this part. I'm grateful to the African American Heritage Commission, led by Director Angela Thorpe and Chair Valerie Jordan. Grateful to the North Carolina Freedom Park Board, Zena Howard with Perkins Will, and Pierce Freeland, representing the Freeland family, along with Senator Natalie Murdock, who is here as well. I'll tell you, this is such a special day, and I'm very excited to be a part of this. it's fun to get to look out and see if you make sure who the person is with only the eyes and the ears. And I've done pretty well so far picking you out. But we know we need to do it to set an example and do what's right to protect our brothers and sisters and all of the people around us from this virus. And as I welcome all of you, I want to pause for a moment to remember someone who could not be with us today, Phil Freelon. Today, we celebrate his vision for the project with a new beginning, the groundbreaking of the North Carolina Freedom Park. And I also want to thank my friend Kel Landis, who's worked so hard for years to help raise the money for this project. I don't know if he could be here today, but grateful for him and his hard work. But the desire for freedom is universal. But all North Carolinians have not had the same access to it. The history books often fail to acknowledge contributions and struggles of people of color. And this park is a critical step toward authentically telling the story of our state's rich history. Recent challenges to our state, including historic storms and this pandemic, have shed a light on long-standing inequalities in health care, as well as education and economic opportunity. It's clear that we have more work to do to make sure that we live up to our motto of first in freedom. I'm proud of the work that my administration is doing to address racial and economic disparities and to find solutions. And we'll continue to do that necessary and important work and continue to have those hard conversations that need to be had. And when I look out over this site, I imagine the school children who will one day come here to see the beacon of freedom and draw inspiration from the words of activists such as Charlotte Hawkins Brown, Ella Baker, Pauli Murray, and Golden Frinks, and of course, the poetry of Maya Angelou, and so many others. And as we reflect today on our history and look with hope toward our future, we know that this site will help to educate generations to come and provide a place for people to celebrate the history and the art and the communities that make us all who we are, because diversity is indeed our strength. And it will highlight the important contributions of North Carolinians who shaped our history, but whose stories have not always been told. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity. Thank you for working hard to create a space that enriches our history and provides a place for generations to come where people can learn and enjoy. Thank you all very much. I'm going to come back and inspect the hole that you all have done to make sure that it's a good start. And I look forward in the time ahead. I don't know what the timeline is here, but I look forward to being in office so we can come and cut a ribbon, okay? Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. It's a great day today. It's just a great day. I'm Goldie Franks Wells, and I am the co-chair of the North Carolina Freedom Park Board. It gives me great pleasure to welcome each of you to this historic moment in our state's history. We're breaking ground today on the North Carolina Freedom Park, the first park honoring the African American experience in our state. This park honors the African American struggle for freedom in North Carolina and the ideal of liberty for all. The park speaks positively into our civic conversations, as demonstrated by the bipartisan support from the state legislators, as well as the generous support of private foundations and private corporations and members of the public. The park represents universal themes of freedom, perseverance, and equality at a time when we most need to pursue them all together. Please join me in a moment of silence for those who caused us to be here and brought us here today, including our beloved designer, Phil Freelon, our founding co-chairs, Dr. John Hope Franklin, the distinguished historian, and Dr. William Friday, the greatly respected President Emeritus of the University of North Carolina system, now all deceased. Would you bow your head for a moment? Thank you. We are thankful for your presence here today, both those who are here in person and those who are with us virtually. May God bless you.
Good afternoon. It was a great day. 20 years ago, this whole thing began. You'll hear more about that later and in the follow-up to this grand ceremony. I'm David Warren. I'm the co-chair of the board along with my great friend Goldie Franks Wells. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this ceremonial groundbreaking. I would first like to introduce our current board members who have worked tirelessly to make a vision, one that we first dreamed together and have worked toward this day. First, our board recording secretary, Dr. Victoria Gallagher, Dr. Reg Hildebrand, original co-chair, Senator Natalie Murdoch, our campaign consultant, Mr. Chuck Watts, campaign co-chair, and Miss Rebecca Quinn Wolf, his campaign co-chair. Melody Hunter Pillion, the media advisor to the project. Tracy Lovett, where's Tracy? Way back there, okay. And Joe Johnson, longtime board member. Additionally, I want to recognize one of our advisory council members, which is the advisory council is composed of former board members, plus a number of other persons who wanted to stay involved with the development of the project. So it numbers maybe 40 or 50 people. Representing that group is Ms. Beverly Fields Burnett, right there. She was there from the beginning and has been still with us all the way. Thank you, Beverly. She's here representing the many people who gave their time over the last several years. I'm particularly pleased to introduce representatives from some of our key funding partners. These are some of the people and organizations who believed in the project before it was a real thing, and that was important to making us realize it at this day and invested in it with their time, energy, and dollars, and their personal support, many of them. Without them, we would not be here today. Mr. Paul M. Green, representing the Paul Green Foundation. The Paul Green Foundation initiated the project, and this gentleman here had the initial idea for the concept, and he's watched it develop. Miss Joanne Sanford, the board chair of State Employees Credit Union Foundation. And Mr. Robert Brinson, board chair of the State Employees Credit Union. Our largest donor and one of our greatest supporters. Thank you. Mr. Mo Green. Is he here? Oh yeah, Mo. From the he's CEO of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, which we have to give special recognition to at a time when we were struggling with fundraising and organization and morale. The Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation boosted us up with not just some funding, but with some ideas and their staff support. That was 5 years ago, and we survived and we thrived. Thank you. Mr. Kevin McLaughlin, VP of Government Affairs and External Relations for Duke Energy, and Mr. Stephen DeMay, President of Duke Energy. A special thanks for Duke Energy's recent generous donation, which gets us on the way toward funding the Beacon of Freedom, which Natalie will tell you about a little later. Thank you. I also want to introduce two important speakers who will share with us details about the vision of the park that Phil Freelon worked with us on developing before he left us. His son, Pierce Freelon, and Miss Zena Howard from the Perkins and Will architecture firm in Durham. And I want to recognize Nita Freelon, Phil's wife. Thank you. And finally, I want to recognize our partners all along the way at the North Carolina Division of Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Susie Hamilton, thank you. And your colleagues who are here, many of them, Chief Deputy Secretary Reed Wilson, Ms. Michelle Walker, Ms. Angela Thorpe, and a special recognition to her because she has been serving as an ex officio member of our board, coming to meetings, being the liaison with the department, and providing us inspiration as in her role as both a person as well as the director of the African American Heritage Commission. And, by the way, when this project is finished and we transfer it to the state of North Carolina, it'll go first to the Department of Administration and for ownership, and then to the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources for programming and maintenance. And guess who's going to be in charge of it? And Angela Thorpe. I hope you get some help. And there also is Tracy Burns here, who's helped us gain some significant funding. Thank you. And Michelle Lanier. You were with us for a long time. I'm sorry you left us, but I'm glad to see you back. Thank you. And there are several other valuable staff members here doing videography, doing work on the tables, and just a very important part of making this whole event happen. Thank you. We wish that everyone who has been involved with moving forward the concept and development of this project, this actually is this new state landmark, could be here today. And I hope that many of you are sharing this great milestone via YouTube. This North Carolina recognition of the African American struggle for freedom could not be more timely, nor more timeless. Thank you.
I am Reg Hildebrand, a member of the board. It has been a long journey, as the governor said, to get to this starting point. We today are an important part of a very significant global phenomenon. Less than 2 weeks ago, a park was dedicated in Paris to honor a woman who fought to end slavery on the French Caribbean island of Guadeloupe. And in 2001, a monument called the Tower of Freedom was dedicated in Windsor, Ontario, in Canada. In fact, most of the places in the Western Hemisphere that have a history of slavery have chosen to celebrate emancipation and efforts to end enslavement with bold, positive, inclusive works of public art that affirm the value of freedom and are located in prominent public spaces. With the construction of Freedom Park, North Carolina will proudly become one of those places that has chosen to celebrate freedom. Let me tell you a story that I hope will illuminate the meaning and message of this great park. This is a newspaper account of something that happened here in Raleigh on the 4th of July in 1865. Just a few months after the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery. It reads as follows. The 4th of July was one of the happiest days the colored citizens ever experienced. The procession was large and grand, well represented by hundreds of school children. Many persons came in from the countryside to this, their first celebration of independence. The line was through the principal streets, passing the governor's mansion, and thence to the beautiful grounds of the Peace Institute. There, the Declaration of Independence was read. It was indeed a well-written and well-read document, full and complete, sublime and eloquent. The deafening applause during its delivery told how it was received and appreciated by the waving mass of human beings whose hearts beat in response to the great truths. 1 year earlier, in 1864, the editor of a black newspaper called the Anglo-African visited North Carolina from New York as part of a trip he was making to observe the status of the people who were then emerging from slavery. He reported, "There is a peculiarity about the people of North Carolina. There seems to be more of the unquenchable fire of freedom in the eyes of these people than in those of any other people we have yet visited. It is the spirit of those newly freed people who responded with deafening applause to hearing the words of the Declaration read. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with an unalienable right to liberty." Those words had a power and a meaning for them that even the man who wrote them couldn't have fully understood. The unquenchable fire of freedom in their eyes, that is what we will celebrate and represent in Freedom Park. This will be a unique, arresting, and original project. It will be a place of beauty and history and a popular destination for visitors. At its center will be a towering, inspiring sculpture called the Beacon of Freedom. In challenging, troubling times, some might question the value of constructing symbols in public art. It is true that symbols are not all important, but neither are they unimportant. They do matter, particularly in unsettling and contentious times. Our public art and our public spaces reflect who we are as a society, as a community. They proclaim what we believe and what we aspire to achieve. They illuminate what and who we value. This will be especially true for Freedom Park. It will serve as a source of instruction and inspiration for school children and a source of encouragement now and for people of the future who may face challenges we can't even imagine today. Whatever their own background, whatever challenges they are facing, when they come to Freedom Park and look up at the beacon of freedom and read the words of Black North Carolinians who struggled for freedom, they will begin to understand that heritage and to realize that there are many inspiring examples for them to follow, and they will be encouraged because they will see that the pursuit of freedom is not the exclusive province of men with guns facing foreign foes, but also of women who were enslaved, like Harriet Jacobs, and of educators, like Charlotte Hawkins Brown, of businessmen, like John H. Wheeler, and poets, like George Moses Horton, of clergymen, like the Reverend James Walker Hood, and of course, of civil rights leaders, like Golden A. Franks. When they come to Freedom Park, they will learn that the people who tend to express the value of freedom most powerfully and convincingly, and with the greatest moral authority, are the people who were denied it most completely, the people who were slaves and their descendants. Their words and their witness will serve as reminders for anyone who may take freedom for granted, or who may falter or become discouraged in its pursuit. They remind us that the flame of freedom that lit the soul of every slave still burns in all of us. They remind us that the battle for freedom begins every morning. Through the often troubled and dark history that we share together, has emerged an illuminating and inspiring beacon of freedom that we will also share together. And echoing through that history is the wisdom and the encouragement of what co-chair Goldie Franks Wells has called the voices of freedom, in the form of the quotes that will be artfully inscribed on the walls along the walkways through the park. This will be our gift to future generations. It will tell them what we valued and the kind of society and community that we were trying to become. When visiting the park, Black people will be proud, but they will not be alone. Visitors of every background will be uplifted, and they will think of the beacon as a powerful, iconic symbol of this state. We will all be proud that we played a role in building Freedom Park, that we helped create this common ground where we can affirm our shared values and ideals. As I close, a few words specifically about the beacon of freedom. Just as the torch held high by the Statue of Liberty welcomes, encourages, and inspires people coming from across the sea to seek freedom, the beacon could be seen as a kind of domestic Statue of Liberty, whose light will encourage and inspire people for whom America has always been home, but who find themselves engaged in efforts to expand, secure, and defend freedom right here. Or it could be seen as something like the biblical pillar of fire that led enslaved people out of the house of bondage and beckoned them ever onward to a promised land. But I believe there is another way to think of the beacon that comes closer to what it will mean 50 or 100 years from now. The persons whose words will be inscribed along the walkways. Each of them had different life experiences, and they lived in different time periods. But each of them, in their own way, has something to tell us about freedom, or the lack of it, about courage and commitment, and about perseverance through adversity. Even though they are all different, they are all singing from the same hymn book. Those of us working on this project, as we read their words and considered their lives, we could almost hear them telling us, "This little light of mine, let it shine." That, I believe, is the meaning and the purpose of the Beacon of Freedom. And let it shine is what we must do. And so, between the state archives, where history is preserved, and the state legislature, where history is made, let it shine. That is to say, so we won't forget where we've come from, or lose sight of where and how we need to progress. Let it shine. When the dark clouds of pandemics and injustice and poverty and homelessness and needless deaths and killings and a contentious, unsettling, divisive political climate, when it seems like we are about to be overwhelmed by uncertainty and discouragement, let it shine, let it shine. That light will keep our eyes on the prize and will not confuse random acts of destruction and violence with a determined march toward freedom. Someday, people will be able to come to this place and look up and get for themselves a spark of that unquenchable fire of freedom, because we here this day have committed to let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. As Councilman Freelon comes after consulting with his mother, as he should, in addition to being a distinguished councilman of the city of Durham, he's also a star graduate of the Afro-American Studies program at UNC Chapel Hill.
That was my professor. Wow. That's all I gotta say about that. Beautiful. I want to start just by acknowledging my mother, Nina Freelon. Once again, thank you for being here, Mom, and for helping Dad, build such a wonderful legacy in this community. I'm the youngest of three. My elder brother, Dean Freelon, and his wife, Kate, are also here. Also a professor at UNC. Love you, big bro. And my sister, Maya Freelon, is actually Zooming with her nieces and nephews. Phil's grandchildren are watching us online, so greetings to her. Dr. Hildebrand, your remarks were so inspiring to me. I was actually thinking about James Weldon Johnson's Black National Anthem before you brought up This Little Light of Mine, as I think about the ways in which culture allows us to celebrate legacy. And my dad had a really interesting quote that he took from an architecture he really admired. I forget what the source is, but the quote is, "Architecture is frozen music." Architecture is frozen music. And so to lead with This Little Light of Mine, I think, is a very appropriate metaphor, not only for my dad, who is married to an amazing musician and vocalist, but I know that he is smiling with that metaphor, and so much of his practice was so musical and so improvisational, and that was so much a part of his spirit. And I just want to say that Dad, was born and raised in Philly, but he came to North Carolina for college. He was at NC State right up the street from here at this prestigious design school, and he made North Carolina his home. He raised me and my siblings right down the street in Durham, North Carolina. He started his company in this community. And though he went all around the country doing big projects like the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., or the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco, or even the Reginald Neff Museum in Baltimore, he loved doing projects in his own backyard. He loved planting seeds in the soil that helped nurture him in his career. And seeing his buildings and his structures just really warms the heart of our family, because it's such an incredible way to celebrate his legacy. And I'm so excited for all the children. When Governor Cooper talked about imagining the kids, I just got that mental image. So many of our kids in North Carolina are going to be able to navigate this park and learn about the wonderful, rich legacy. What Dad said, he used a metaphor in the proposal, you remember, Zena, about roots. You know, you see the trunk of the tree, you can see the fruit, but how about them roots, though? How about them roots that keep us grounded? Marcus Garvey said a people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. And then when I was researching this project, come to find out North Carolina don't got no African-American monuments. This is the first one in this 2020. My goodness. So we about to get our roots on. And I am so proud that my dad has played an important role in that. And the last thing I want to say in closing, just very briefly, I was in Durham in 2017 when the Confederate monument got pulled down, and a year later when the Confederate monument came down on UNC's campus, of which I'm an alum. And young black folks are at an interesting juncture in this country as it relates to accountability and civil rights and justice. And this is one of the ways that they're venting their frustration, is by tearing down these relics of white supremacy, which are so prevalent throughout the state of North Carolina. And I am so excited that now we have something to put up. You know, it's one thing to pull something down, but what are we going to build to replace those monuments? I hope, my prayer is that Freedom Park is not just a beacon for our people, but it's a beacon to the state of North Carolina and to other states throughout the South, that we need to bring up some new monuments in the South that really cherish and recognize the legacies and the power of the Black freedom struggle and the resiliency of all North Carolinians. I loved how you said that too, Dr. Hildebrand. It's not just about black folks. Yeah, we bout it, okay? We're great. And our resiliency and all that, but we are North Carolinians. North Carolinians are abundant. North Carolinians are resilient. And North Carolinians will all be able to pull something useful and beautiful out of their experience with this park. So thank you again. I'm so happy to be channeling my father's spirit on this stage right now. And with no further ado, his colleague from Perkins and Will, Zena Howard.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to follow Pierce speaking, because that takes so much pressure off of me. You know, I'm really humbled here today. I hope that, you know, what I have to say to you guys reflects the humility that I believe that Phil would have if he was standing before you today speaking. Because I watched in studio so many days and late evenings, quite honestly, fussing over little models, particularly about that beacon and about those roots. And so I know the thought, the level of passion, the level of you know, wisdom that went into thinking about what a memorial is going to be, particularly, as Pierce said, at a time when all across the country we're thinking about how we recontextualize, repurpose, potentially remove many of these monuments. Well, Phil Freelon and the team that he worked with, we were ahead of this conversation, right? Because we've been working with the co-chairs, Wells and Warren and Watts. We've been working with you guys for years prior to this escalation of the current conversation about monuments. And so our team, we're just humbled to really be your cheerleaders, to really be partnered with such an amazing group of people that have the patience and the endurance to allow the fundraising to come in, to get that beacon up there, to know that this is monumental for North Carolina. And so thank you for allowing us to be your partner in all of this. And wonderful to see Phil and his family and Nina, the Freelon family here, and everybody that we've worked with. And I know Phil is just sending, he's beaming from the skies right now. This is a glorious day, not just weather-wise, but glorious day for North Carolina. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. I have the honor of closing us out, and before I do that, also want to acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Corey Branch for being here with us, representing Raleigh. As we all know, with COVID, we kept a very tight list, but we are glad to have some elected officials with us that were with us every step of the way. Raleigh and Wake County are a list of those partners, so do want to acknowledge them. And as everyone stated, we have been working on this for years. I joined the project in 2017 and just was honored to be a part of the amazing legacy of Mr. Phil Freelon, and so happy to have the Freelon family with us here this morning, and know it was so important to him to have a piece of something that he created right here in his home state. And as we've said before, why not North Carolina? Being an individual that is not only born and raised here in North Carolina, I can actually trace my family roots to slavery right here in North Carolina and Orange County that is not that far from here. So it means so much to me to have all of our rich history truly reflected in our capital. I serve as a state senator, and so just elated to have this park right down the street, so that everyone knows that we belong here. This is our state. So just so happy to be a part of history today. We look forward to welcome you all again in February. Look forward to having a larger celebration at that time in honor of Black History Month, and yet again for our ribbon cutting. So as we have heard, the design of the park is intended to inspire visitors to remember and reflect on freedom through words and symbols, meditative and educational space, which will evoke and illustrate the African American historic and ongoing struggle for freedom and full citizenship. The inspiring beacon of freedom is the park's essential iconic feature, illuminated tower that will be in the heart of the park, proclaiming freedom for all. The heartbeat of the park, in the words of African Americans, articulating the meaning of freedom, both personal and universal. We have already raised over $3.2 million in private funding and a bipartisan grant from the state in the amount of $1.5 million just a few months ago. It was that most recent grant that provided us with what we needed to proceed with the groundbreaking today, bringing our total raise to $3.2 million. Gifts and pledges are from generous individuals, corporate partners, and foundation funders, including the State Employees Credit Union, BB&T Bank, and the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, among dozens of others. Let's give them a hand. We are now launching our public campaign, so we are so excited to do that today. The campaign will be entitled Light the Beacon. That is why you all saw masks as you came in today that have the Light the Beacon. That is the name of our public campaign, so that we can complete the final funding needed for this central feature of the park. Today, at this historic groundbreaking, I am thrilled to announce a signature gift from Duke Energy in the amount of $100,000 to kick off our public campaign to Light the Beacon. So I would like to ask Freedom Park Board Member Rebecca Quinn Wolf to stand, as well as Chuck Watts to stand, co-chairs of our capital campaign. Kevin McLaughlin, VP of Government Affairs and External Relations for Duke Energy, and Stephen DeMay. Thank you for believing in the park. Without these types of contributions, this park would not become a reality. So we want to thank you for believing in our park. My challenge to all of you today, and especially those joining us via YouTube and online, is to share the word about this historic park. Dig deep into your hearts, but we also need folks to dig deeply into their pocketbooks as well. We are still raising money, and after the phase of construction is completed, we will have a Friends of the Park where individuals will be able to continue to be a part of all the amazing programming we'll have. As we said earlier, we'll have school children visiting from all over the state. We want to make sure that we have a draw to them here, having quarterly events, so we will have a continued presence in this park. So with that, we will light the beacon. So at this time, Tracy Levitt, are you still here or does Tracy have to step out? Okay. Perfect. Yes. So at this time, we unveiled this morning our signage, our permanent signage. So we're going to walk right to this white sign down there, and we have some individuals that will get shovels and hard hats. So we will now do the ceremonial groundbreaking.